You ever see a massive skyscraper going up and just wonder, how on earth do they keep that colossal budget from spiraling out of control? Well, it's not magic, that's for sure. It's actually a carefully crafted strategy, and today we're pulling back the curtain on what's called the art of the cost estimate plan.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the big problem: why so many huge projects go completely off the rails. Then we'll dive into the solution, this thing called the financial blueprint. We'll break down how it's made, what the key ingredients are, and finally, we'll see why having this plan is the critical difference between a billion-dollar guess and a project that's actually set up for success.
Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1 is all about why projects go over budget. We're talking about the chaos of unplanned costs.
I mean, it's a story you hear all the time, right? A city announces a brand new bridge, or a company says they're building a new headquarters. And then, a few years later, what are the headlines? All about ballooning costs and missed deadlines. So what is really going on here? Well, the difference, more often than not, boils down to this. On one side, you've got pure guesswork, and that's a path that leads straight to chaos, delays, and yeah, those massive cost overruns. But on the other side, you've got a real strategy, one that brings control, clarity. It's the difference between just, hoping for success and actually engineering it from the start.
So how do we get from that chaos to real control? Well, that brings us right to Section 2, the financial blueprint. We're going to introduce the cost estimate plan.
And a cost estimate plan is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like, a financial blueprint for the entire project. This isn't just some number that somebody pulled out of thin air. Now, no. It's a detailed, formal document that outlines the entire process. We're talking everything from how costs are going to be calculated and managed to how they get approved by every single person involved.
And this part is absolutely crucial. It's a proactive strategy. The whole point is to get everyone, the owners, the contractors, the engineers, totally aligned before the first shovel ever hits the ground. That's what really improves the odds of success. It's about making sure everyone is reading from the same playbook from day one, instead of trying to figure it out halfway through the game.
Okay, so how does this blueprint actually come to life? Let's get into the mechanics. That's Section 3, how the plan is made, taking it from raw data all the way to an approved strategy. It's a pretty straightforward four-step process. First, the team gathers up all the inputs, the project scope, the schedules, and really important, lessons learned from past jobs. Next, they draft the initial plan. But then comes step 3, and this is the real game changer. That draft gets shared with all the stakeholders for review. See, this isn't some top-down command. It's a team effort to get everyone's feedback and buy-in. And finally, once everyone is on board, the plan gets that formal, signed approval.
All right, so what's actually in this blueprint? That's what we're digging into in Section 4, inside the blueprint, the key ingredients of a strong plan. And spoiler alert, it is so much more than just a spreadsheet.
First things first, let's talk about handling the money. We've got to look at the core financial components, the real nuts and bolts of the whole budget.
The plan basically defines all the ground rules for the money. It answers questions like, what currency are we using? How are we going to handle foreign exchange rates, which is huge for international projects? It gets into the nitty-gritty of labor wage rates, including benefits. It lays out exactly how specialized subcontracts are going to be handled, and, so importantly, it addresses escalation. Because let's be real, the price of steel and concrete isn't going to stay the same over a 5-year build, right? But look, a great plan can't just live in a spreadsheet. It has to be grounded in the real world. It has to plan for all the messy, unpredictable conditions you're actually going to face on the ground. And this is where the plan gets really smart, because it starts to account for all those messy, real-world variables. It looks at the location itself. Are there specific weather windows we have to work around? Just how remote is this site from everything? It digs into the schedule implications. What's the real cost of extended overtime or a plant outage? It even tries to quantify labor productivity. I mean, think about it. A crew working in a blizzard is just not going to be as efficient as a crew working on a perfect sunny day. And of course, it has to nail down the freight costs for getting every single bolt and beam delivered to the site. Okay, so this all sounds great for the stuff you can predict, but we all know that big projects are pretty much defined by surprises. So, what about the unexpected? And this, to me, is one of the most powerful parts of the whole process. A great plan doesn't ignore risk. It doesn't pretend it doesn't exist. It anticipates it. The plan actually outlines a formal process for risk analysis. And the result of that analysis, that determines the project's contingency fund, a pot of money set aside specifically for the problems you know are coming, even if you don't know what they are yet. It literally turns potential disasters into just another manageable problem. So, after all this work, all this detailed planning, what's the real payoff?
That brings us to our final section, why a good plan matters. This is really about the difference between a guess and a guarantee.
And here's the bottom line. An approved plan, it isn't just a piece of paper. It's a commitment. It's a promise from everyone, the owner, the architect, the builders, you name it. Because they've all reviewed it and signed off on it, they are all committed to the exact same goal. When you really think about it, it all comes down to this. A project without a plan is just a guess, a very, very expensive guess. But a project that has one, that's a strategy. So next time you see one of those mega projects going up, don't just ask, hey, what's the budget? Ask the question that really matters, the one that truly separates success from failure. Ask, what's the plan?